Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedbuilding video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the world of Brindleton Bay, which is the world that we got with the expansion pack, The Sims 4 Cats and Dogs, and I'm going to be building a generations family home. So this house has 4 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms, but you can sleep around about 5 to 6 Sims depending on what you want to do for your gameplay. I did decide to build this house for my save file, and so I did actually have a family in mind when I was building it. I really like the backstory that I've actually come up with for this family. It's nothing extraordinary, it's nothing like groundbreaking. I just really liked the idea, and yeah, I'm really excited to actually talk a little bit more about them in a minute. But with the bedrooms, there is a parent's bedroom which can sleep 2 Sims, then there is a room for like a child, and then a room for a toddler and a baby. Now I can't actually remember the last time that I actually built a nursery in The Sims 4, because if we're all being honest here, babies in The Sims 4, they're objects. You can basically just put a crib in like a corner or in like a small little 4x4 space and it's basically a baby's room, because they don't need anything. I mean, I wouldn't actually recommend that you put a baby crib into a 4x4 room, because I feel like that's not morally correct. But if you wanted to, and maybe you was living in a tiny house, you could actually do it, because they're tied to the crib. They don't need anything. All you need to do is maybe like 3 times a day go and visit the baby, give them a bottle, maybe change their nappy, and maybe give them a cuddle, and that's basically it. And I really want to see updated babies in The Sims 4, and I know a lot of people do as well. I'm really holding out for generations, and if we get generations, I'm hoping that they're going to update the babies, because the baby is an object and I don't see them as a sim, and because of that I never seem to actually design nurseries for them, because in my mind you don't need an actual nursery for them. I'm talking way too much about this, but anyway, the toddler's room is part toddler room and then part nursery, and then there is also one more bedroom which is actually on the outside part of the house. And so I decided to make this house have a pool house, and then in the bottom part of it is kind of like a mini house. You know, with Tiny Living we've got 3 different types of tiny home that you can have listed to make it actually be a small home to get like reduced bills and stuff. There is 3 different levels for it. There's like a micro home, a small home, or like a tiny home. There's 3 different levels to it, and I think the biggest tile limit that you can actually have in a tiny home residential is 100 tiles. I'm pretty sure the pool house itself is bigger than 100 tiles, so if you're up for the challenge you could realistically have about 4 or 5 different Sims living in just the pool house itself. But for the idea that I've actually got for my family that's actually going to be living here in my save, I decided to make the downstairs portion into like a bathroom area, there's a kitchen area, there's a lounge room area, and then if you go onto the upstairs it's just kind of like one big bedroom. There is a bed up there, a desk area, and then everything else that you'd normally find in a bedroom. But moving on from that and actually talking about the family that I have in mind to live here in my save file. So I was actually thinking that it starts off with 2 parents, and they actually met when they were in high school or secondary school, whatever you want to call it. Maybe one of the Sims moved from Oasis Springs to Willow Creek, and because they did that maybe they had to change schools. I mean, you can't actually do that in the game. I would love that small little feature though in the game of when your Sim actually moves from one world to the other, and then their children have actually got to go through meeting new friends and new school. I think that would be quite a nice little small detail. But regardless, maybe one of the Sims moved from a certain world to another world and had to join schools again, and then maybe they met once they joined this school, or maybe they just met through friendship groups. Either way, I just imagine that they met quite late into their secondary school experience or their high school experience. They just fell in love and they decided, yep, I want to be with this Sim the rest of my life. Now, I actually imagine that quite early on into the relationship, one of the Sims actually fell pregnant, and they decided to keep the baby and, you know, start their family a little bit earlier than what they would have planned. Now, I imagine the first maybe like year or so of their relationship was quite hard, because they are 2 young Sims, 2 teenagers bringing up an object baby, even though object babies aren't actually that difficult to take care of. But in my mind they are, okay? We're going with the idea that babies in The Sims 4 are actually difficult, because they're definitely not. But I imagine that it was quite a struggle, and so one of the Sims decided to leave education, not go off to uni, and just kind of take care of the baby, whilst the other one actually decided to go ahead and get a uni degree and actually be able to make money for the family so they can have a nice kind of like comfortable life. So I imagine that maybe they had like a part-time job when they were at uni, and then I'm going so far. I just realised how far I'm actually going into this storyline, but I was just kind of, you know, as you get building and you start thinking of an idea for a family, I just didn't stop thinking about the idea for the family. But I imagine that they actually went to a university and they got a degree and they are now a published author. Now, in the meantime, I just skipped over a few years, but probably about 6-7 years later, quite a long time between their first child, they decided to actually have a second child, and then that second child then went into a third child, and then into the 4th child, which they are now expecting. That is just kind of like the idea that I had for the family, or just one of of the parents. Like I said, the other one, I imagine, actually stopped education just to kind of bring up the family and maybe take care of it. I was thinking that maybe once they're actually finished raising their household and like raising their family, maybe this sim wants to actually own their own restaurant. I was kind of going with the idea of that, or maybe they want to be a famous chef. I was thinking of the possibility that in the time that they were actually staying at home and, you know, like raising their family and potty training toddlers and whatnot, I imagine that they actually just found a love for baking and maybe cooking as well, and maybe that's why they want to go into that career path. But that was just kind of like the idea that I had for both of the parents. Now, I did actually mention as well that they did actually have their first child quite early on. I now imagine that child to be a young adult. So I'm actually going to do it in my save is I'm going to make both the parents to be adults, and then they're going to have a young adult and then a child, a toddler, and then an object baby. Now, I was actually thinking that with the young adult, they were actually now a university student and they've now gone away to university, or actually stayed at home, but, you know, started their university degree. I was thinking that maybe they were going to go away to uni, but then they actually saw the price of the, you know, the living cost and whatnot, and the family was like, I don't really want to be paying that. And so what they decided to do is maybe they had like an old barn in the back garden, or maybe it was already a pool house, and the upstairs portion of it was just kind of like somewhere where your sim would go and they would throw the Christmas decorations up there. They'd just throw like old boxes with photo albums. Maybe they decided to make that room actually into a bedroom, and so their child can actually stay at home whilst they're at uni and, you know, live at home whilst they're doing their degree. And then there is also a child in this household. I didn't really think too much into the child, and the same with the toddler as well. I didn't really think too much into them. I feel like toddlers are quite hard to actually give them a personality, because there's like four different sim traits that your toddler sims can have. I think there's like fussy, angel, there's, I think, nosy. It's not nosy, it's something else, I can't remember what it's called, but there's like only a few selected different traits that toddlers can have, so it's quite hard to actually give them a personality. But with the child, I was just kind of thinking that maybe they wanted to go into a paranormal investigator career, which I know is so bizarre. Out of this whole entire storyline, that's probably the most bizarre thing for a child to want to go into that career path. But I designed their bedroom to have quite a lot of the paranormal stuff pack in it, and so it's quite bohemian, quite like boho, and so maybe that's what they want to go into, or maybe they just like that style, maybe they're going for a phase, who knows. But that was just kind of like the idea that I had with the family that's going to live in this household for my save. Now, by all means, although that was quite an in-depth storyline, don't ever say that I never give you in-depth storylines for my save file families, but obviously if you wanted to download this house and you've got a completely different family, you don't have to stick to the storyline. This is just the family that are going to live here in my save file. So if you had a family that's maybe consisted of 2 parents, or maybe 1 parent and 2 teenagers and like a toddler, or whatever you wanted to do, maybe even if you wanted to turn the pool house into kind of like a granny house, and maybe you had a grandma or a grandpa living in there, you could definitely do that. But this was just kind of like the idea that I had for the family that I want here living in my save. Obviously, if you download it, you can do whatever you want. Once you've downloaded it off the gallery, you can, you know, change the bedrooms in any way, shape or form that suits the family that you want to play with. But anyway, moving on from that and actually talking about the build a little bit more, because I've been rambling on for so long about this backstory. I just had a lot of fun thinking about it. But anyway, as you can see, I'm just going around now and doing a bit of the landscaping. Now, the video itself is actually quite long. Without the screenshots, this video is currently standing at 32 minutes, so it's definitely quite a long video. But I really didn't want to cut too much of the video out, especially the landscaping, because a lot of people tell me that they like watching me landscape, and I've said this before in my videos, but if you like watching me do something, I'm going to try and include it, because if it's what you like, do you know what I mean? I'm going to keep it in. And so I decided to keep in quite a bit of the front garden landscaping. I did decide to cut out all the back garden just because it's quite repetitive. But as you can see, I'm just going around now with the build and changing up a few bits of the wallpaper. So you might be thinking this house looks quite familiar if you are a viewer of my channel and you come and watch my videos quite regularly. You might be thinking, I recognise this house. Now, I tried to base it off the house which was in the house opposite, so you might be able to see it at certain points when I spin the camera around. But I think it was around about like 3 months ago, I built a house which is actually on the opposite lot to this in Brindleton Bay, and I kind of wanted the houses to look the same. I didn't want it to be exact replicas and they're not the exact same house. They're completely different houses on the back portion of the house and on the inside, but I wanted like the front porch part and the front of the house to look quite similar. This is something that I've actually been doing in quite a lot of the different neighbourhoods within my save file, because I don't want 2 houses that are placed next to each other or that are near each other to be completely different houses. Because if you ever drive down any road 99% of the time in England, a lot of the houses are built at the same time, they look quite similar, half the time they actually are exact replicas of themselves, just on the different side of the road, and maybe they'll have like a different front door or something. But in England, a lot of the houses down a road will look quite similar. And I wanted it to kind of feel like that in my sofa. I wanted it to feel like maybe they had the same building developers building the houses, they were built at the same time. I didn't basically want you to go into our neighbourhood and there'd be like a neon pink house sitting next to a white and red brick colonial. Like, it makes no sense in my mind. And so I want some neighbourhoods to have quite similar houses. Now, I'm obviously changing up the exterior parts of it like in like certain ways. Like, I'm not doing it exactly the same, because otherwise I'll just be building the same house, do you know what I mean? But I am changing up like little parts of it. For instance, on this house, I basically tried to replicate the front portion of it onto the back portion, which is something that I didn't do in the previous build that I actually did in this build. Because in the previous build I kind of did like this outdoor like balcony into the roof, and it just looked completely different. The back of the houses look completely different, but I kind of had it in my mind that maybe the other house had an extension, or maybe this house had an extension, and they've just kind of changed it, you know, however they felt like it. Maybe actually the pool house used to be a barn, because on the other side of the road with the other house that I was looking at, there was actually a barn which I decided to make into a club hangout. Now maybe the barn in this lot, it was actually placed at the back of the house instead of in the front, but this family was a little bit bougier, and so instead of decided to make it into a club hangout, they decided to make it into a mini house. Where I was thinking that this family had quite a rough start to their life, or just the parents, where they just came out of secondary school and they've got this newborn object baby, I was thinking that maybe they've moved around quite a lot. Maybe they lived in a small little apartment, like a shoebox apartment in San Moschino, and then since then they've kind of just gone up in house size, like gradually, and now they've landed here in Brindleton Bay, and maybe this is their forever home. They're never going to leave here, and so maybe that's why they decided to put a little bit more money into their house and change the barn to be the pool house. If you really wanted to, actually, I was thinking that you could probably convert the pool house into like a gym, or maybe even like a little activity room, or maybe like a spa. Honestly, you could do whatever you want. It's basically like a room which you can put whatever you want. If you've got maybe like an artistic family, and you wanted to have like a little art room, you can make it into an art room. If you wanted to maybe have a musician family, you wanted to make it into a music room, honestly, you could do whatever you want. I was thinking that maybe it used to actually be a gym before their eldest child decided that they actually wanted to be a uni student, and so before they actually converted it into a mini house, or like a posh shed is what I like to refer it to sometimes, but before they decided to make it into this little mini house in the garden, maybe it did used to be a gym, and they just decided to, you know, put more money into the house, add value to it. And if you're someone that actually likes to stay in the same house throughout the whole entire generations, what I was thinking you could do is, once the young adult has actually aged up and, you know, has a family of their own, maybe the parents could actually move into the mini house in the back garden. Because I personally, whenever I like to play with multiple generations, I like them to be in the same household, so I can kind of see what they're doing, you know, I can get grandparents to interact with grandchildren, you know, have quite a good relationship. So maybe the parents eventually move into the pool house, and then the eldest child then moves into the actual house. Maybe the other like siblings decide to move out and maybe start different lives in like different worlds, maybe like Oasis Springs or whatnot. But I imagine that maybe one of the children stays in this house, and the grandparents maybe move into the little pool house. And I just really like the idea. It's a proper generations family home. But anyway, moving on from that and actually talking about the build itself and what I'm actually doing right now. So for starters, actually, before I forget, you know the barbecue that I've just placed down? I saw someone tweet about it the other day, and I'm so sorry, I can't remember who tweeted about it, but someone tweeted that if you actually look at the back of that barbecue, it's actually got like a little chef on it. I never knew. So as you would have seen, I just quickly like span it around just to see it myself, and there's actually like a little painting of like a little chef or something on the back of the barbecue. I've never noticed it. We've had this in the game since base game and literally never even seen it before, but I just thought I'd mention it in case anyone didn't see that tweet. But yeah, on the back of that barbecue there's like a little chef. And yeah, anyway, moving on from that though, as you can see, I'm just currently doing this little kind of like picnic area. So I wanted this house to be quite farm-like. I was imagining that maybe Brindleton Bay is quite like a farming kind of world, even though we don't have farming and it came with cats and dogs. If you actually look around like the surrounding areas, there's like fake sheep and fake cows and stuff. They're literally fake. Like if you actually zoom in, if you go into tab mode and you zoom in, they're literally so like jolty with their animations, but obviously it's just for decoration. They didn't actually expect anyone to zoom into them, but I imagine it to be quite a farm-like world, and all the objects that we actually got from cats and dogs are quite like countryside-like. And so I wanted the inside and like the inside of the house and all the furnishings to be quite country style, and so I decided to use the cats and dogs like kind of dining sets, the table and then the matching kind of chairs in the back garden for kind of like the little seating area. Now normally I don't ever use this set for back gardens because I feel like it's more inside of the house furniture, but I just really liked it in the back garden. But as well as that, on this porch we obviously have that barbecue, and then we also have a little art easel as well. I was kind of stuck on what to put in the corner of it because it was quite like a small space. I didn't want to put another seating area because I already had a seating area on the other side of the porch, and so I thought, you know, add another gameplay item so your Sims won't get bored in this house, and so I added an art easel. As well as that though, in the back garden we also have some sunbeds, we also have the diving board from Get Together, and then we also have the swing set, some planters, and then the little laundry line, which is actually right directly next to the porch, which actually leads down from the utility room. I was thinking that maybe if your Sims just put a load of washing in and then it needed to be hang out to dry, and maybe it's in the summer, it's quite a nice hot day, they wouldn't have to travel far to go from the utility room or like the laundry room to hang the washing out, because they literally just walk out the back door and the laundry line is like there. By the way, obviously this house does have laundry. If you don't want to play with laundry in your game, then you can definitely just delete it, maybe replace it with something else. I'm not sure what you would replace it though with, because I would normally say bathrooms, but honestly there's enough bathrooms in this house for every single Sim. If your Sim needs a wee, they ain't gonna have an issue finding a toilet, because like I said, there's 6 bathrooms. There is 2 full bathrooms upstairs which have both a shower and a bath in, and then there is 3 bathrooms downstairs on the inside portion of the house which either have a bathtub or a shower in, and then in the pool house as well there's another bathroom which just has a shower in. So you're not going to have an issue with bathrooms, so I'm not sure which you could make that into. I was thinking it would actually be quite a good thing if we could have pantries in the game. I know it would kind of not make sense, but, and I feel like pantries are quite an American kind of thing. We don't really have them in the UK, we just have cupboards with food in, but I felt like that room would be perfect for a pantry. Maybe if we could actually use some of the debug menu items, like all the different like tomatoes and lettuce and, you know, different kind of fruits and vegetables, and actually place them onto the shelves. But I'm scared that they might spoil, or if I actually upload them to the gallery, that they won't actually transfer over. But anyway, moving on from that and actually talking about what I'm doing right now, because I have actually now moved on to the inside of this house. So because I actually wanted this to be quite farm-like and quite countryside kind of house, I just had to go for the country kitchen kit, which is so hard to say, and I say it every time I say that kit's name because it's definitely a tongue twister, but I just felt like it suited so perfectly in the world of Brindleton Bay. I feel like there was definitely a missed opportunity with cats and dogs to not include some kind of like more country style kind of counters, even though saying that, all of the base game counters can actually be quite countryside like, but they can also be a little bit fancier. But these counters that we got from the country kitchen kit, I just absolutely love them. I haven't used them in that many swatches. I normally ever go for like the cream swatch that I've actually used in the kitchen, or the white and like kind of like lilac lavender kind of swatch that I've actually used for the sink in the utility room. There definitely is some questionable swatches of these counters, but I really want to actually use quite a lot of them, because even though they're quite questionable and they're quite out there, I feel like they can make for quite interesting builds. But anyway, moving on from that, as you can see, I'm just finishing up the utility room in here. So in here we have a washing machine, a tumble dryer, a sink. I also placed down the little hoover that we got from Buster Dust, or the vacuum, whatever you want to call it. And then I also did actually place some things onto the wall, which is just next to one of the doors which goes into one of the bathrooms. Now I kind of imagine that maybe that was schoolwork, or maybe just paintings and pictures that the kids drew and they kind of gave them to them like parents, and instead of putting them on the fridge or something, they just put them up into the utility room. They were actually the debug ones that we actually got from, I think it was Seasons. I think I also did actually merge in some ones that we got from Parenthood, which are actually like pictures which you can put onto the Parenthood board, which I also did include into the kitchen as well. But I kind of felt like maybe it was just pictures and paintings that maybe was old schoolwork or something, and the family wanted to display it, and so they decided to put it into the utility room. But moving on, I've now started furnishing the lounge room. So the lounge room actually ended up being quite a big room, and I really didn't know what to do with the space, because if you really wanted to and you wanted to download this house and maybe add an extra bedroom, you could definitely add an extra bedroom in just this lounge room itself. It is so big. What I decided to do though is I actually decided to split it up into 2 separate rooms using some columns and like some spandrels. It's still technically like the same room, but I wanted it to feel a little bit closed off. So we kind of have like the main body, if you want, of the lounge room, and in there I put down a fireplace. I do actually end up switching out the swatch of that fireplace, by the way. I originally put down kind of like a grey swatch, and it just really weren't working for me. So I decided to switch that out off camera. You'll see that in the screenshots though. But we also have the season sofas, which I feel like I haven't used in such a long time. I remember when we first got seasons, they were like some of the first sofas that we actually got in the game that actually had like little cushions on it. And the majority of the base game sofa options and armchair options don't actually have cushions and blankets and throws, and it's just not as realistic and not as homey as you want it to feel. I mean, most of the time people have cushions and blankets and throws on their sofa because it's a much more homey thing to have cushions and blankets on your sofas than not. Maybe that's just me thinking that, but I feel like I haven't actually used them sofas in such a long time, and I kind of felt like they fitted in with the country theme of this house that I was going with, so I decided to use them. And then in the little separate kind of room at the back, it's technically at the back of the lounge room, but technically on paper it's at the front of the house. But in there I decided to make it into part music room, part library, which actually technically would not work, because imagine you're sitting down reading a book or you're doing your homework or something and someone's sitting next to you trying to be Elton John on the piano. It's just not going to work out that well. But in the game, I feel like it works quite well, because I don't think Sims get distracted when someone's playing a musical instrument near them. Unless it's actually really bad, then Sims, I believe, get a negative moodlet. I haven't actually had a Sim play an instrument badly around another Sim for quite a long time, but I'm pretty sure when I used to, Sims used to just be like, oh, go away, because I didn't want to listen to it. But in there we have the grand piano, and we also have some bookcases. I felt like it was quite suiting, because where one of the parents is going to be an author, maybe they've got all their first drafts and second drafts of books which they've now since gone on and kind of published in the bookcases. And I feel like having loads of bookcases in a house where an author lives isn't really too out of the ordinary. But anyway, moving on from that, as you would have seen, I did actually just go over and furnish the dining room. Now in the dining room, I actually struggled with it just a little bit, because I was really struggling on what to put on the wall in terms of like a painting or artwork. I actually ended up using a painting which is actually a debug menu painting, and it's actually one of the ones which your Sims can collect if they look through either the microscope or maybe through the, oh, what's it called, the one where you look into the sky, you know, the one that I'm talking about. I can't think what it's called off the top of my head, but it's one of the ones that your Sims can basically collect in the game. I'm really struggling now on what artwork to use, because I feel like I use the same artwork all the time, because there's not that many nice paintings in the game. And so I've now started to kind of go towards more debug menu paintings and maybe like different picture frames and stuff that your Sims actually find in the world, and not so much that's going to be in the normal build and buy. But in there, I just absolutely love the way it came together, because the one that I chose, the painting that I chose, was kind of like autumnal kind of colours, and I felt like it fitted in really nicely. I believe I used the cats and dogs chairs and then the cats and dogs table as well, and then also in there we have a little pet bed, and I just really like it. But anyway, moving on from that, as you would have seen, I did actually just furnish the downstairs kind of like entryway into the house. So we kind of just had some like coat hooks, somewhere for your Sims to throw their hat and coat down, maybe put their school bag down, maybe sit down and put their shoes on. I didn't actually show the rest of the furnishing of the rest of the hallways, just because I really didn't want to make this video too long. I've already said this video is 32 minutes without the screenshots, and I normally try and make my videos 25 minutes or less with screenshots, and so I did decide to cut out the main hallways out of the video, but you'll see them in the screenshots, as well as the bathrooms. You would have actually just seen me furnish one of the bathrooms, but I don't keep in the furnishing for the rest of them. I say it all the time, but bathrooms are actually quite boring. If you're boring to watch and boring to look at, there's a toilet in there, there's a sink, there might be a shower, it might be a bathtub, but at the end of the day they're quite boring, and so I decided to cut out the video, but you'll see some of them in the screenshots. But anyway, moving on from that, I've actually now started furnishing one of the bedrooms, and I decided to start off with the nursery / the toddler bedroom. So in here I decided to go for the eco lifestyle bed. I really like this bed, and it comes in some really nice swatches. I used that, and then I also use the Realm of Magic bassinet, which I was about to say I never actually ever seem to go for that bassinet, and I don't think I've ever actually used it before. But I don't normally tend to do baby rooms, because if I'm being completely honest, whenever I have a baby being born in my game, I don't keep them as babies for very long, maybe 20 minutes, if that, because I just get sick of babies and I just age them up into toddlers. But if you decide that you actually want to play with the object babies in your game, then there is a bassinet for them to, you know, sleep in and to stay in, because they can't move out of it. But anyway, as you can see in here, I decided to do something and kind of create like a baby table. So I actually use the chest of drawers, which is from Parenthood, and then I actually sized down and then moved up one of the kind of little seating areas that your Sims can sit at. I don't know what they're called, but you normally find them at like an end of a Sims bed, and I kind of merged it in to make it look like a baby changing station. I want to mention before I forget that I have actually playtested this house. Like always, I'll playtest all of my builds before I upload them onto the gallery to make sure they're all completely usable and and you won't run into any problems when you download them. When I actually came around to playtesting it, I did actually expect to run into a problem with this chest of drawers. I really didn't expect it to be usable, but surprisingly, it's completely usable. My sim had no problem whatsoever changing from her swimwear into her pajamas, and so you won't have to run into any problems when you actually download this house. I fixed all the problems that I did actually run into. They were all just small, minor little problems I actually ran into, like maybe an object was too close to one object and so on and so forth. I think there was like 4 different things because I noted them down in my phone, and they were all so minor. So once you download it off the gallery, if you do decide to, then the house is completely usable. And yeah, anyway, moving on from that though, as you can see, I'm just finishing up this room now. I decided to add this little shelving unit above the changing station to kind of make it look like there's baby bottles up there. I also added some debug nappies and like debug sponges, that maybe they're the sponges that they use when they bath the toddler and stuff. But anyway, now moving on, I've now started furnishing the next bedroom, which is actually the child's bedroom. So in here, I decided to go for the Paranormal Stuff pack wallpaper. I tried to make it like 2 different feature walls on either side of the room, and then I paired it with the Seasons bed, which I absolutely love. It's my favourite single bed that we actually have in the game. It's got these little curtains which kind of like dangle down, and it comes in so many nice swatches. I decided to go for this kind of like bluey, greeny kind of one, and then the curtains kind of have these little pink flowers on them. I just think it's so adorable and really suits in for a child's bedroom. But we also have a little desk area in front of the window over here, and then in this room I tried to clutter it up with as many child activity items that I could possible. I just couldn't fit the scientific table in though, but if you wanted to, you probably could maybe have a little move around, a shift about in this room if you did want to include it. But I decided to put the activity table at the end of the bed. Then there is also the little dollhouse which we got from Eco Lifestyle. There's the kids toy box which is from, I think, Kids Room Stuff. I really want a new toy box in the game because I don't really like the swatches of some of the ones that we actually have. There's only a few swatches of the toy box that I actually like, and I feel like I use them all the time. But we also have one of the big teddy bears. I decided to use the one which is actually a dog because obviously we're in Brindleton Bay. We got cats and dogs with Brindleton Bay with cats and dogs expansion pack, and so I just felt like it suited. Plus I also imagine this family to actually have a dog and a cat as well, which, by the way, before I forget, there is actually litter boxes placed around this house. There is some litter boxes in the downstairs bathroom, and then I also believe, I think anyway, I placed a litter box on the upstairs balcony as well. And so if you do want to play with cats or maybe dogs, there is enough litter boxes, and there is also food bowls in the kitchen as well as toddler potties as well. I'm not sure if I showed the furnishing of me actually putting the toddler potties into the bathroom, but there's somewhere for your cats to go for a wee and for your toddlers to go for a wee, so you shouldn't run into any problems. But moving on from that, I'm just finishing up this room now and adding some final details, and now I'm actually going to move on and start furnishing the parents' bedroom. So in here, I wanted it to be quite neutral because I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like with parents' bedrooms, they need to be quite neutral. At the end of the day, you've got 2 Sims. They might have different ideas of how they want to furnish bedrooms, and so I feel like if you go for quite a neutral bedroom, which most Sims can sleep in, I feel like that's probably like the best options for parents' bedrooms anyway. But in here I decided to go for the cats and dogs bed, and then I actually use these bedside tables which I think are from Discover University, but they come in quite a similar swatch. I did also decide to add a fireplace into this room as well. There was the fireplace downstairs like directly underneath this, and there was a chimney on the exterior as well, and so I decided to use the exact same fireplace downstairs onto the upstairs portion. And then I did actually just move objects of painting onto it because I felt like it was a little bit boring with just like the brick fireplace, and so what I did is I deleted 2 of the walls behind the fireplace and then moved objects of painting up using the 9 key, and then was able just to kind of make it look like that painting is actually hanging off the fireplace. I used a painting which is from Cats and Dogs, but now I'm just going around the rest of the room and just kind of like finishing it up. There is also a mirror in here, there is also like a little armchair as well as a chest of drawers. But now I've actually moved on and I've actually started furnishing the home office. Now obviously we've got an author. The author needs somewhere to write the books, and so there needed to be a home office. In here I decided to use this base game desk, which I think is actually an unlockable that you get when you actually go through the writer's career anyway. It just suits so perfectly. It really does look like a writer's or an author's desk. It's got all these little like books and just kind of like little bits and bobs that makes it feel like it's kind of like a cluttered workspace, and it just works so perfectly. In here as well though, we do just obviously have a computer on the desk, and then there is a little miniature bookcase, a little armchair, and then also technically another little armchair that still is technically a seat, but I always just use it as kind of like a little placement for your Sims to actually like sit down and maybe put a cup of tea on it or something, even though technically it is actually a chair. But I also put a clock on the wall, which I always forget forget that we actually have clocks in the game. Another thing that I really want back into The Sims 4 is alarm clocks, because I feel like I used to use clocks all the time in previous generations of the game. I'm not sure which one it was, but it was either The Sims 2 or The Sims 3. When your sim had a job, or if they had to go to school or something, the alarm clock would wake them up. It would literally like wake up whoever was in the room. I really miss that, and I feel like because we don't actually have alarm clocks in The Sims 4, I never seem to actually put them down into, apart from like the odd decorational clock, but I never actually seem to actually use the wall mounted ones, just because I always kind of just forget that they're there. But anyway, moving on from that, as you can see, I just finished off the exterior balcony on the upstairs level. I placed some planters down as well as some armchairs, and now I've actually moved on to the inside of the pool house. Now I'm not going to lie, originally when I actually did the barbecue area on the back garden, I actually came straight on into here next to try and furnish it. But I really struggled on what I wanted it to look like and how I wanted all the objects to look and which ones I wanted to use and stuff. And so what I decided to do is I played around with it a little bit, and then I thought, you know what, I'll just come back to this at a later date, a later time in the build. And I'm really happy that I did, because I actually really like the way it ended up turning out. So originally, you see where this massive sofa area is? Originally, I was thinking that that might be quite a big kitchen, like a full-blown kitchen, fridge, oven, you know, the whole shebang. But then I was like, no, this university student, they probably cannot be bothered to actually cook full-blown meals. I was thinking if they actually want a proper like full-blown meal, they'll go into the main part of the house. But I felt like it would be quite suiting just to have a few counters. I used the ones from Island Living, and then I used the Discover University mini fridge. Maybe they just want to put a breakfast burrito or whatnot into the microwave, and that's kind of them done. I feel like a lot of university students don't eat proper meals. Maybe I'm speaking from my own personal experience, but anyway, as you can see, also in this room, I did decide to use the eco lifestyle sofas, and then I also decided to place down this ping pong table into the middle because there was quite a big empty space and I was really stuck on what I actually wanted to do with it. I was thinking maybe after lectures your sim would come home and maybe bring a few of their mates around and maybe they could play a bit of beer pong or something like that. I feel like this would be quite a good party place if you wanted it to. There is already a radio station downstairs, I believe, and then I also do add one under the upstairs portion as well. But if you wanted to, you could definitely add a bar, and then it's basically everything that your sim would want. Obviously, if you wanted to add like a DJ set or something, you can just like kind of add it in, or whatever you felt like was necessary for a party place. But if you wanted to have a uni student that loves to go out and loves to do a bit of beer pong and stuff, this would be the perfect place for them to actually, you know, live. But anyway, moving on from that, I've now moved on to the upstairs portion of this pool house, and I've started furnishing the bedroom. So in here, I use the eco lifestyle bed, and then I actually use the desk that we got from base game. We got it from the freelance update, which we got a couple years back, but even though it's base game, it's probably one of my most favourite desks that we actually have in the game. I just really like it. I decided to put a computer in the middle of it and then actually put 2 TVs either side of it to kind of make it look like it's got 3 monitors. And then I also do just go around and clutter this room up like crazy, try and add loads of different posters and like piles of clothes. I also tried to add some like cracks into the walls and like ripped off paneling and stuff like that. I also do actually add some of the like the rubbish and the trash that we actually got in the world of Evergreen Harbour with Eco Lifestyle. You know, if you go into the world, it's quite like dirty and there's loads of rubbish on the floor and there's like milk cartons and like pizza boxes and stuff. I decided to add it into this little pool house because I felt like it was very suiting for a university student, maybe not to be the cleanest kind of sim. But anyway guys, I have actually reached the end of this voiceover, so as always you can download this build via the gallery. My origin ID is JessicapieYT, or you could just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speed building video. Bye guys.